Tucked away inside your nearest Sega Dreamcast, there is one little location where information will pass through, stick around for a little bit before going on its merry way. A small bar that I've set up where I talk to random passersby, and the best memories are the random ones. Welcome to Ram on the Rocks. Here today, I'm joined by TheDigitalHazard.
Hello.
What do you do on the interwebs?
I stream predominantly lots of Digimon games on Twitch. Big fan of Digimon for a long, long time. And apart from that, a few RPGs dotted between some old PS1 classics.
Yeah, I think I started getting familiar with you around the time that I uploaded my review of Digimon World 2. And I started, a lot of doors started opening up after that. I started getting acquainted with a lot more Digimon creators after that one.
Yeah, the Digimon rabbit hole is a deep and vast one. There's a connected network down there.
Yeah, like any other fandom, it's got its bits of drama here and there, that sort of thing. But that's just kind of to be expected when you get a lot of people together, so...
Oh yeah, as with any fandom, there's always divides for completely superfluous reasons, but mostly we all sort of follow the same sort of idea that we like Digimon and they're very cool.
Yeah, and I mean, the vibes are pretty good right now after what happened yesterday.
Oh, literally, literally yesterday, leaving work at 5:30, checking my phone to connect it to my car's Bluetooth and seeing the news about the leak, and going from that to being at home to setting up my stream to having the trailer drop within 3-4 hours after years of nothing. It was incredible. The hype was off the charts. It was fantastic.
It was really cool. I was at work most of yesterday, so when I saw that the leak had happened, and then when the state of play went live, but I was keeping my phone was going nuts when the trailer dropped. So, and people were very excited to tell me about that one. It was funny because earlier this year at MagFest, a music and gaming festival up in National Harbor, Maryland, I hosted a panel where I was talking about the history of Digimon video games, and I kind of ended things off just kind of stating we don't really know where things are at right now. What with Habu kind of leaving his position, we kept being told that there was a new Digimon story game on the way, and just haven't heard anything. Well, hey, here we are.
Yeah, it's always been difficult with Bandai Digimon and communication. Even with Survive, we had nothing for years, and then we came to a final Digimon Con where it's 3 years since we've heard anything. Surely we'll have something. And then at the actual Digimon Con itself, which itself is just an online sort of festival for Digimon, they announced nothing. And then 3 weeks later, they just dropped a tweet with a date. That's just how they work.
Yep. It's it's like they've been pushing the card game, which is nice. It's appreciated, but it's it's the rest of the franchise has kind of been floundering a little bit. So it's nice to see some progress there.
Yeah, Digimon's always been split into what I consider 4 big areas of the VPETs, the toys, the card game, the anime, and the games. And at the moment, as you say, the VPETs, the cards, and even the anime are flourishing with what Discotek are doing with the re-release and Ghost Game just wrapping up. And obviously the VPETs having the crossovers with Monster Hunter, crossovers with what's the other one I've forgotten now already. It's doing some really
Godzilla.
fantastic things. The Godzilla one, that's the one that slipped my mind. And the games just seem to flounder. We had the Next Order port, and then just sort of nothing from there. As you say, with Habu, sort of, I don't know whether it was stepping down or moving away from his producer role after so long. It sort of threw the whole thing into question of what was happening with it.
Yeah, and it's especially when like you were saying, we got ports and stuff, which was nice, but we're talking about Next Order and the Cyber Sleuth duo were PS Vita games that we just kind of kept getting recycled for a number of years. We got Digimon Survive, which is cool. I'm a bit of a defender for that game, but it's we were waiting for that big new mainline thing.
Yeah, Digimon Survive was a real dark horse because even that was 3 years late because obviously it released during the first pandemic and it went into development during the first pandemic, and the production for the first company, the Red Witch company, I think they were called, just ceased. So I had to jump to a new one, and then we got it and it was fantastic. And I really enjoyed what Survive tried to do with the franchise. It was obviously with the light novel sort of thing with the tactics style gameplay. It pushed lots of boundaries. If you managed to get through it all, you got through all the endings and everything. It was really good. Didn't gel well with everyone because of the type of game it was. But I enjoyed it, and I'll continue to defend it just as you do.
And I always thought that like Survive was kind of neat in the sense that it was following in similar footsteps to Digimon Ghost Game, where both were kind of taking a sort of yokai approach to Digimon as a concept and how they integrated into the real world, and just kind of being like a lot of characters in the real world would perceive them as ghosts or demons, as they're just kind of like warping in from another dimension, which is something that Digimon has always kind of toyed with, but I liked the kind of darker spin that those two projects kind of gave to it.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see how what they call them, Kemo Nagami, I think they were, how they tried to like justify how they exist, what they do, where they're from, why they exist, and how they're able to like manifest in the real world, and how they're able to interact with humans in real time. It was really interesting to see what they did, and I really hope they get a chance to do more with it, because there's so many like little tidbits of lore that could be expanded upon with a relatively low production cost light novel series, and I do hope it comes back at some point.
Yeah, you and me both. That is, and I'm curious to see, because I feel like we don't know a ton about like how exactly Time Stranger is going to play. We do know it is a Digimon story game, so much like Cyber Sleuth or many of the games that were on the DS. Although here in the States they were called like Digimon World, so not to make anything confusing, but yeah. But it seems to me like they're kind of going for some larger, like, open biomes. I don't know if open world is quite the right word, but like being able to use Digimon as mounts and stuff like that, like that's cool. I'm curious as to what sort of format the battle system is going to take place in.
Yeah, I hope they keep it with a very similar vein to Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, with the turn-based strategy, and that's sort of like with the things, evolution paths and stats and stuff. I hope it kind of stays to that. It does look like, let's say, they're pushing things to bigger worlds. But I feel that these will be similar to how they were in Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, where they appear large, but you have sort of a set path of areas you can go down, as with the water area. I think we saw like a straight sort of like path down from the top to the bottom of the screen. But I'm hopeful. But then again, I enjoyed Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, and I thought they were fantastic games. So if it's more of the same, I'm game.
Yeah, because even then, it's like I'm just happy that we're seeing like a more characterized version of the digital world, whereas like as much as I enjoy Cyber Sleuth, you do kind of get tired of the color blue after a while. And so it'll be nice to see some more characterized locations and environments to explore.
Yeah, especially with it being focused around the Olympus 12. I'm looking forward to like the sky areas. I assume each Olympiad will have their own sort of biome if they do expand it that far. And obviously we'll still have the human world. I think I recognized one of the human worlds we saw as like one of the main hub areas from Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory, but sort of expanded. So it was the same designed area, but the area itself was different. The models were different. And I've noticed with so many people analysing the trailers, we've seen that the models do seem to be different for the Digimon. They all seem like completely fresh, revitalised models, so they've not gone back and reused the same ones from like Next Door or Cyber Sleuth. It does look like a fresh coat of paint on them.
Yeah, I'm liking the cell-shaded approach too.
Yeah, I'd always worry if Digimon tried to approach like the hyper-realism side of things, because one, it sort of ups massively the costs of production, and it'll take up loads more disk space where we don't want to see them. And I'd say I prefer it. It looks like the anime style. Keep it cel-shaded, and that's sort of what's going to keep me happy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it just fits better. I feel like if they ever tried to go for like realism, it just wouldn't mesh.
No, yeah.
That being said, big reason I brought you on board today. Like I said before, I've been covering the Digimon games more and more on my channel. It's not what I started out doing, and I didn't think it was ever going to take off the way that it did. But I'm working already on the next major Digimon review, which is Digimon World 4, which that's going to be an interesting one.
Oh, I love World 4. It's like it's the ugly child, of the World franchise, because for some reason they named them worlds continuously. So World 1 was World 1, World 2 was clearly Dungeon Crawler, World 3 was like a JRPG, but World 4 was like Dark Souls before Dark Souls. You had obviously the dungeons, the exploration, the weapon levels. Everything was so complex, everything was so mysterious, and everything was so un-Digimon in a way, because like the evolutions didn't work as you'd expect them. The models were really strange. All the models were freshly made for that game, but it was still fun. Whether or not it was the mechanics that were fun, or the fact it was just like a relatively average sort of gauntlet thing with a Digimon skin, I don't know. But the amount of times I would fall asleep playing that game and wake up with my little nodule somewhere in the world and trying to remember where I died.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I don't want to give too much about like my thoughts on the game away just yet, but I will say that I heard a lot of people that were basically just trying to be like, oh, you can skip that one. We don't talk about World 4. You know, it's almost impossible to play if you're by yourself and not with friends. And I don't think those people are going to get the review they're expecting. I'm not nearly as negative about the game as I was thinking I was going to be based on what people were telling me about it.
No, it's massively just huge amounts of fun just to sit there on your own, trundle through the dungeons. Because the difference is, well, obviously, it has a few mechanics, but I don't want to go too far into it because I'm not quite sure what your video is going to contain. But some of the mechanics do sort of work against a player if they're playing multiplayer. The way some of the mobs spawn, the way some of the controls work, like it locks the camera with two players. Like as soon as you get to a certain point, so if one player wants to pick up something, another player wants to go somewhere else, you're locked in place until someone decides what you're doing. You ramp that up to 3-4 players. It's chaos.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually going to be running because I'm planning on doing like a solo. Okay, well, the idea was to do a solo playthrough, but I'm quickly learning that this is not a game designed for one single playthrough. I feel like you play that game a minimum of 3 times, essentially.
Yeah, because you have like the standards, the hard mode, the very hard mode, and there's different unlocks, there's different experiences. It's a lot bigger than it looks.
Yeah, but I will be doing some 4-player co-op with the game as well, and oh boy, I'm interested to see how that turns out. You know, I don't know if this is if I'm the only person that's ever thought this though. I feel like I was going a little crazy while I was recording. You know what game it kind of reminds me of?
Go on.
Digimon World 2. to a degree.
Yeah, it is very much like the Digimon have just gotten out of the Digibeetle and they've thought, so let's just do it ourselves. And they just pop into the dungeon, they walk around, and they walk over the traps, they walk through the monsters. So no, I can definitely see where you're coming from.
I think a part of it is like just the light dungeon crawling elements, like running around just finding the chests to open. It's the way that you like encounter bosses and then immediately there's a warp ring back to your home base. Like there's parallels there that I was not ready for.
Yeah, very similar in that sort of mechanical way.
I almost feel like I feel like there's potential to do some sort of hybrid there. I've been saying for a while that the game that I want the most is like a Digimon Warriors game. Like I want a Dynasty Warriors spin-off with Digimon.
Oh, I have so many notes on that exact idea.
I feel like Oh, go ahead.
As I say, I've been down that rabbit hole myself, where I've looked into Unity, I've looked at designs, I've looked at, do I want the first Musou to be an attack? Do I want it to be an evolution and then an attack? And then would you have an equip item you'd bring into it? So if you bring in the Grey Tooth, your Agumon starts to level as Greymon, or the Metal Arm, it starts to level as Metal Greymon. And I've been down this rabbit hole for hours, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thought. I'd love to see it.
I feel like, because I've brought it up with a couple of other Digimon fans, and I've had a lot of other people say like, oh yeah, I've thought the same thing, and it's like, man, the potential there. It's Bandai. They can do it if they want to.
They did it with One Piece, they did it with Gundam, and they both worked fantastically, and they both turned into their own little miniature franchises.
Yeah, and I honestly feel like Digimon World 4 would not be a bad template to kind of springboard off of, like kind of take some elements from that, but incorporate like the Warriors gameplay.
Absolutely, I think it worked fantastically.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of Digimon World 2, that was kind of the main topic I wanted to discuss with you today. When I reviewed that game, it's worth noting that when you're tackling a game of that size, if you're trying to do it for the sake of making a review on that game, especially if it's your first time playing it and you have a lot to learn along the way, it kind of shifts the way that you're going to experience the content on offer. I had a lot of problems with Digimon World 2, but it's not to say that there aren't also a lot of things that I think are worth acknowledging that the game did well. And I thought you would be the perfect person to bring on board to have a more positive discussion about this one of the games that's kind of been looked at as one of the black sheep of the series.
Yeah, I love World 2, but my love of World 2 started from my sheer inability to understand World 1. I couldn't get very far into World 1 whatsoever, so when I first heard of World 2, I thought it was an incorrect entry on this list of games I was looking at. I thought to myself, I know Digimon World 2, I know Digimon 1, sorry, so why is World 2 listed? Because here in the UK, World 2 never happened. We didn't get it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I had to get my copy from somewhere else, and when I got it, it was black and white for the first 2 years until I got my PlayStation upgraded because of regions as they existed. And no, I initially had no manual, so the game doesn't itself tell you anything in terms of how the DNA system works, how the dungeon system works, how the leveling system works, but everything's in the manual is fantastic. It's one of my favorite game manuals. It's got some wonderful little cartoons in it, some great artwork, and it tells you everything. So I was completely blind. I remember getting to the point where I was at the Neumon domain with my level 13 maxed out Greymon and just repeatedly game over, and I just didn't understand what was happening. It took me I think it was literally, I pressed square in the overworld by accident, and it zoomed over to look at another Digimon, and it says no gift to give, and everything just fell into place. So I remembered the gift items, I remembered everything, and it just clicked, and from that point onward, it was a different game entirely. So it's definitely one of those, you've got to learn things as you go, or just go in already, like, read the encyclopedia.
Yeah, that was a game where like I had to look through a lot of guides and a lot of walkthroughs and just tried to look up a lot of stuff where people were kind of explaining how certain things worked, because I was initially very confused about a lot of mechanics. Because I think I even said in my review, like there were a couple of things I was embarrassed by, like how long they took me to figure out, like how the bug zappers worked. I got a pretty far way into that game before I finally figured that one out.
Yeah, the dungeons, the domains, and how the game actually tells things, because the tutorial sort of explains very, very little things, but everything else is literally you have to burn yourself on every trap before you understand how things work, how to get around them, and how to progress. And even after that, you can play the game for hours, and like a tiny mechanic will pop up and say, like, here we go, here's your entire system reset, because the return bugs, I'll hate them forever.
The return bugs are like an instant, as soon as it like returns one of my Digimon, I'm just like, all right, I'm heading back, because like I'm not trying to make it through this entire dungeon without my team.
Yeah, and even that mechanic, it wasn't until 15 years of gameplay later that I heard someone basically say, just fill out your home server with Digimon, and then return bugs don't work anymore. And I was just sat there for a good few minutes thinking, wow, I've had so many dungeon runs completely wiped from one return bug. Wait. And this cheap, simple trick solves everything.
Wait, how does that work?
So basically, you know, similar to ways how the Pokemon boxes work. When you try and catch a Pokemon, your box is full, it just removes the Pokemon. The same way, if your home server is full of Digimon, which is about 30 Digimon, the return bug doesn't function. It can't send your Digimon back. There's no room for it. It can't delete it, so it just doesn't work.
Oh my god.
15 years it took until I learned that from a random, I think, Facebook group post where someone just mentioned it worked. I was like, no, it doesn't. I did it. I was like, oh, it works. Fantastic.
That's awesome. What the hell? Oh my god. Yeah, see, that's one of those things. That game is just constant, like, finding things out about it. I remember people in my comments trying to tell me, they were just like, you made this so much harder on yourself by playing on a PS3 because it slows the game down because the emulator is just weird. And after I found that out, I tried playing the game on my PS2 Slim with like the disc reading speed turned up.
Yeah.
And yeah, night and day difference. Found that out after the video was published, and I felt like an idiot, but
yeah, there's so many secrets to that game. I remember taking so long on those battles sometimes, because obviously with there being 6 characters, 3 of yours, 3 of theirs, I would set an entire round up, then I'd go downstairs, I'd grab a drink, I'd go upstairs, and it'd still be going.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta ask though. So when you complete the main content of the game, there is a 99 floor dungeon. I forget what it's called.
The Terra Domain.
The Terra Domain. Have you completed that?
No, not legitimately.
Okay. Interesting.
I got to about, my furthest ever was about floor 300. And that was I had every bit of resource that I could imagine I could carry. Every EP recovery I think I had. I ran away from every single battle, and even that took me about 7 hours of on and off gameplay. And I gave up. I thought, because I'd heard the rumor that there was something on floor 999 or something with a 10% chance spawn rate, and I gave up and left it to the wind. And as the game feeds us mysteries every time, I later found out that no, there isn't anything down there.
Oh, yeah. No, the Chimeramon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember looking into that. Apparently the only legitimate way is to use Pocket Digimon World and then transfer a Chimeramon over from the Pocket Station into the game.
Yeah, it was a weird mystery that was shared on those sorts of Angel Fire message boards from years ago that no one had concrete proof of, but that one guy said he totally did it.
Oh, yeah. It's like that one friend that insists that, yes, he personally found a Mew under the truck.
I've totally got a Charizard card, but my mum won't let it bring it to school.
Yeah, so how many floors are in the Terra Domain? I thought there were only 99.
No, it does go up to 999. But I think after a certain point it just loops, and there's not much point. A few people do races where you can basically constantly go down the floors until you get to somewhere. It's a little bit of fun, but the Digimon themselves just loop. I think it's like designed as, I think they may have wanted to do something with it, but they just sort of either didn't or they chose not to, or whatever happened. But it's an endless one almost.
Wow. So is there like any kind of final boss to be found in there, like a secret final boss?
No, it just goes, from what I've seen of it, for people who've used like infinite cheats to like max out their EP, it just ends with a basic green floor room, but it itself, I think there's like a standard few mobs, and then there's an exit portal.
Okay. It's interesting. I'm planning on returning to that one eventually, because I've been kind of mulling around the idea of, at some point, doing a video where I tackle the post-game content of Digimon World 1 and 2, but also like the digital card battle, like post-game, just any post-game stuff that I kind of skipped over before. I did 3 though. By God, did I do the post-content for 3.
I see you mean 2003.
Yeah, I do. I mean 2003.
Yeah. I made the same mistake.
I was once watching, it was like Some Call Me Johnny was doing a review of Crash Bandicoot 4. And he was describing it where he said, you've got 2 games here essentially. You've got Crash 4, which is a fun platforming adventure that kind of takes a lot of the classic style Crash games and expands it into like a new format with flashy visuals and good controls, you know, yada, yada, yada. And then you have Crash Bandicoot 4, the completionist experience, which is a completely different beast all on its own and is not fun.
Yeah, if with some games, if you take them too seriously and you go in there with your full intention of min-maxing, then it's a different game entirely. I had the exact same thing with Digimon. If I went in and played Digimon World 2, I could enjoy it, but as soon as I started learning, there's a fun speed run called Metal Greymon % we do, which is basically getting to the Metal Greymon in the BIOS domain and catching or killing him as fast as possible. I think we've now turned it to killing him. Learning that speedrun and doing the whole session in under an hour, essentially, you learn. You just you look at the game in a different way entirely, because every single bit matters. Every bit of money, every item, everything can just change entirely. And as I say, when you apply different rules to the same game, it's a different game.
Yeah, it's wild how that can happen, and like Digimon especially feels like the kind of game where you can either experience and enjoy it casually, or if you start digging into the meta of it, it just completely flips the experience on its head. Not always in a bad way, but it's like two completely different ways of tackling the experience.
Yeah, it's taking things a bit too seriously and just applying yourself extra to a game that doesn't really need it. The vanilla Digimon World 2 experience is fine. It never gets to the point where you have to like really grind or over level, like build your Digimon in a particular way. Now you can go and build them as you want. You can build them with everything with a heal, everything with dual scissor cutter, but you just don't need to.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was kind of thinking back on Digimon World 1. I was watching I'm not sure if you're familiar with the YouTuber K-Bash.
I've seen a few of the videos, yeah.
I enjoy his work. He actually just recently uploaded a video about Radiata stories. And that's a game that I have not played, but the more that he described it, the more it was starting to kind of sound like, you can go and recruit like an obscene amount of people into like your friend group, and they can all like join your party. And the way that he was describing it and like the little quests that you go on to bring people in kind of reminded me of Digimon World 1, and it makes sense because those games share the same director.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah. It's neat being able to tackle like these games when you do kind of like have the guide in front of you, and you're trying to look into how to best take advantage of the game's mechanics to kind of work towards a certain goal. But I kind of imagine too, it's like you do rob yourself a little bit of that experience, like you were describing, like actually piecing together like how to play World 2 just through kind of like trial and error and figuring it out organically as time went on. And you said you played that in like monochrome for the first like while.
So my first few playthroughs of World 2, changed everything, because the playthroughs after that were never the same, not because I knew what I was doing, but because a lot of the mysteries were sort of already solved. There's a few parts in the game where the next part of the story is literally reliant on one piece of NPC dialogue in one location in the corner of a room, which if you don't outwardly know where they are, you won't find them. So every time this happened, I would go into dungeons, because I'd walk around all the cities and think, well, I've done everything here, so something must be hiding in a dungeon. And every Angel Fireboard told me, oh, it's down in this domain, he's got this boss, you've got to go fight this with this team. Obviously, none of those were true, and it's literally like, there's one where you've got to find Dr. Kadokawa, I think his name is, and he's under the Digibeetle area in the device dome. But that part of the other map of the screen, you never go there. You have no reason to walk over to that section. It doesn't even look like you can walk in that section. But I spent weeks grinding casually through these dungeons, so I was so over leveled by the time I actually found him, the rest of the game was an absolute cakewalk. so now when I go in to play that, I go, oh, I know where that guy is. I go there, and then the next few dungeons are like, wait a minute, why is this more difficult now?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I remember. I think when I was playing through the game, there were definitely areas where I was just kind of struggling with. The one that kind of caught me off guard because I completely forgot about the Coliseum matches for a pretty good chunk of the game.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and it got to a point where I was just like, oh, I actually need to do these to progress. And then I went in and I just like sneezed on the enemy Digimon and they died immediately. Was very, very over-leveled for that at that point.
Yeah, the game sort of gets to a point where it's like, actually, we need to force the player to have some extra content. And even though there's not really any main reasons for the arena, apart from just maybe a bit of extra dialogue forced upon you from some NPCs you may not see every day. Apart from that, it's just a way to give the player certain prizes, I guess.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the game, too, is also just sort of like, what are your self-imposed goals and everything like that. I feel like if you're just like trying to get through the main plot of the game and you're just trying to like go destroy, you know, the final boss and everything like that, it doesn't have to be too difficult, especially if you kind of like get a handle on how to progress through dungeons and how to like get strong Digimon and stuff like that. Or if you take advantage of the trading system, which I did not do in my playthrough.
Oh, the trading system. If you dodge that, if you manage to miss all of those, that separate area gives you some of the best like advantages in the entire game. I swear. You can basically, without that, it's like just like meter mode. With those trades, if you miss like Wizardmon with his Necromagic, the Megidramon you get for trading a Numemon, or the Magna Angemon with a 150 point party heal, it's incredible, and you get those for free essentially.
Yeah, I completely missed those, and I feel like it made my playthrough like twice as hard as it needed to be.
Like literally, I think for my first like 10 or so plays of the game, because I've played the game a lot. So set that one down. I've played this game. I've completed it at least 3 times a year for the past 15 years, just casually. I always had the exact same process of start with Agumon, get him to catch the Metal Greymon, fuse the Metal Greymon with the Megidramon, and then you have your first War Greymon mega level before you're even like at the archive ship. It's incredible.
Oh my god, that's insane.
They say once you get to the point where you understand the game process, it becomes a different game because you stop caring about some things and you start looking at everything past that, and you start experiencing how far can I push things and how different can I make the experience for myself. So you start setting yourself like restrictions and everything.
Yeah, see, that's the sort of thing, is like I feel like I can see myself definitely going back into the game to try it again. But kind of taking a lot of the knowledge that I have now into it and just kind of seeing how my experience with it differs now that I know what I'm doing a bit better, versus like trying to just kind of like grind through the game for the sake of getting a rolling credit so you can write a script. I feel like it doesn't quite do service to a game that's designed this way.
No, the game like Digimon 2 is very, very difficult to like pigeonhole and sort of wrap up in a tight little bow, because there's so many like massive sections of the game that just need their own attention. There's so many mechanics, so many like deep story pieces, and the ending itself, the entire ending section of the game is like just completely goes off to a different tangent.
Yeah, I know at some point my stubborn butt is gonna want to go back in and see if I can get an Omnimon for however long that's gonna take. But
yeah, the three, I called them the 3 gods when I was a kid, because you had the vaccine, because obviously, so Digimon World 2 has a mechanic called DP, where every time you DNA a Digimon downwards, using a mathematical formula, it calculates what the next Digimon's max level is going to be, and then as it does that, it gains 1 DP. So there's 3, as I said, I don't know, obviously not gods, there's a very strong Digimon for 20 DP, which will take a lot of time. You can go the entire game never even getting close to it. I think I rushed the game once and hit 8 DP once on one Digimon, where you have on a Metal Greymon will become an Omegamon with 20 DP. I think it's Deramon becomes Baihumon, the big tiger sovereign, and then an Okuamon will become Diaboramon at 20. And these, it's so cool.
That's the other one I really wanted, was Diaboramon. Especially just like, I see Omegamon and Diaboramon as just kind of like, I love seeing the two of them together, largely just because of that movie when I was a kid. reshaped my entire brain chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, it changed. The Digimon the movie, our War Game, Megamon, Omnimon, and Diaboromon, the whole process. It was a fantastic movie. I need to go and rewatch it at least once a month.
I've been wanting to rewatch it a few more times, especially since I got that Blu-ray from Discotek. It's interesting. Have you gotten a chance to watch the Discotek remaster?
I've not seen the remaster yet. I'm very, very interested. I've heard about some things they've changed, where some things, obviously, we had a very, very edited version of the movie where they sort of mixed the first 3 OVAs into one movie. And I've heard about lots of things they've reverted, which is very interesting.
Yeah, so it's neat. It's kind of the best case scenario package, all things considered, because you can either watch the original Japanese versions with the original like Japanese dub and everything, or you can watch the original like theatrically released American versions, that original like American dub with all of the terrible jokes and everything like cut in, all the dated music that I just can't get enough of. That's all there too, but like probably the most interesting thing that they did with it was they essentially did a new English dub for the 3 separate OVAs as well, with as much of the original English voice cast as they could get back to come in and reprise their roles and do a dub that was a lot closer to like a direct translation to the Japanese version.
Yeah, it does sound incredible. I was watching the production for it when it first got announced. I thought this is crazy. How are they going to do all this? And I'm really looking forward to seeing it. As I've heard some of the reversions they've made to some of the changes. Even though I love the jokes, I love the 3 bean. We've only got 2 beans anyway. Salad joke. Yeah. I love the potato juice. As you say, all the early American like pop rock stuff, I loved it. But it wasn't until like I watched the Japanese version I realized how what's the best way? I'm trying to think of a really good word for it. How the movie sort of held your hand around the plot. Like I didn't realize how much it had been geared to be broadcast to people who didn't know Digimon. So like the narration by Kari just doesn't exist in the Japanese version, and it adds this extra like layer of mystery, especially like the whole Greymon section in the original OVA, which is really funny. In the original Japanese OVA for the very, very first Digimon prototype film, there's no credit listing for Agumon or Greymon. All 3 characters are voiced as Koromon, because obviously he never speaks as Agumon or Greymon in the Japanese version. I thought it was a really, really interesting change.
Oh, okay. So I haven't watched. I watched the new English dub for War Game, but I haven't watched it for the other ones yet, and I didn't realize because in the theatrical American version, I think Greymon speaks like once. Does he just not talk in the original?
No, he's just 100% beast. Like there is not even Agumon. There's no like sort of stuff. There's no I'm Greymon now. There's none of that. He's just a dinosaur.
I like that actually.
It reflects in the credits when it's just all 3 characters are just listed as Koromon.
That's cool. I do like it was interesting seeing such a different tone, because War Game in like its original form is a lot more like melancholic, and it's a lot more like apocalyptic, I guess. There's much more like there's a very dire nature to everything that's going on, whereas in the theatrical American version you get like, stakes and everything, but it kind of tries to do its best to maintain that sort of upbeat attitude. It's hard. The hard part for me is like I don't know that I have a preference between the two, because each one does things, especially in certain moments, that I just like more over the other.
Yeah, I can imagine, let's say, not seeing how it's treated yet, but I've seen the Japanese version, so I'm sort of juxtaposing a sort of assumption of how things work via that. They're two different movies, with the Western dub being treated very much more for the 10 to 13 demographic, very fun, very bubbly. Yes, there's mild like world pandemonium, but it's all resolved, it's all happy, and even with essentially a nuclear rocket landing in a river, and everyone's like looking at oh, what's that? And it falls over. I'm like, that's a nuclear explosive in your river. And then it's playing, I can't remember what song it is, but it's playing like one of the really cheery, I think all my friends are metalheads or something, maybe. And it's just it's like, there's a nuclear bomb in front of you guys. And this the whole vibe of the movie is so different. Whereas the crisis and the threat in the Japanese version is very much more drilled home.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like I do also think that there were some benefits to the original like theatrical version too, because I now, as somebody that grew up with like the Fox Kids, like English dub and everything, there were definitely things that I got really accustomed to as a child when it came to Digimon that I was a little sad to see later on were abandoned. Like, I actually really like the original score composed for the Digimon series. Not the biggest fan of the original, like, English Digimon theme song. Butterfly will always be superior to that. But, like the actual, like, just the background orchestra and everything, I always really enjoyed as a kid, even though I found out later on that a lot of it was just repurposed music from a different project the composer worked on. But, like, especially in the movie, it adds so much energy to everything that's going on. Like, it's got a bit of a spark to it that, and it could just be my brain being so accustomed to that, but going back to watch the original version and hearing the original score, like the fight with Infamon, it just felt like it was missing a little bit of that punch to it, that bite. Like, I was missing a little bit of that energy.
Yeah, it's as I say, it's different vibe entirely. Whereas the Western version is very sort of pop punk, very sort of we can do it if we work together sort of vibe. Much more powerful, just even subtle changes, subtle music that just sort of like gears you up for a fight, really.
Yeah, and it's like it's just cool at the same time that we finally have something that's closer to the original translation. And it was an experience seeing the birth of Omnimon, Omegamon, whichever you prefer, like with that original score and everything, especially when it isn't just immediately cut off with "Let's kick it up," just like blasting over the speakers.
I mean, it was. I enjoyed it in the movie. I did feel it was a little overplayed when I went and watched the 0-2 animation, the second obviously Digimon Adventure thing, because then like you'd have this really dark, foreboding scene, and everyone's like, "Ah," and then it's like, "Hey Digimon, hey Digimon." And it's like, "Oh, that's not the vibe we're going for," but you know.
Yeah. I do love the score for like just when they're digivolving into Omnimon in the original theatrical version, though. It's like, especially the way that they actually incorporate like the American Digimon theme into it. It's so good. At that, I'll never get over. I actually did go to see, what was it, 02 The Beginning. I went out to theaters to go see that one. Have you seen that one?
I have, and I have lots of opinions on that one, but it's my same sort of opinion I have with everything that's tried to change how adventure works in the last few years, going all the way back to Try, to be honest.
I think that movie was at its best when it wasn't trying to tie itself into the rest of the series.
It's very much...
Oh, go ahead.
It's very much that it feels that every current or modern Digimon iteration is trying to either rewrite it, like every director and production company wants to have their say on what they think things should happen, and they never tie things back very well. So if you haven't seen the original adventure, then things like Try and Kizuna and Beginning 02 are fantastic. But if you have too much or you care too much, like I clearly do, about the old content, the old lore, it doesn't make sense and things just happen. You're like, that's not real, that's not how it works. It's all very strange.
Kizuna Last Evolution was the only one that I kind of felt stuck the landing. Where it went in with a clear idea of what it wanted to do, and it didn't impede too much on trying to rewrite what came before. It was just like, hey, we have this like story that we're trying to tell with these characters, and it's this very like somber kind of thing, but it's all a story about like, hey, at some point you just got to grow up and move on. Like that's it in its simplicity, and I thought that it had a pretty good emotional core.
I think it still managed that quite well.
It gets a little messy when you have in the back of your head, you've seen 02, and you know that the adult versions of these characters come back with their partner Digimon later.
When I've seen Taichi and Agumon become lawyers and Matt and Gabumon in space, and then Kazuna's trying to tell me, no, that didn't happen. I'm like, no, we saw it. It did happen.
Yeah. Well, didn't...
trying to make us sad.
Didn't Kazuna, like, try to... didn't it say something about, like, I keep wanting to call them Matt and Ty because I'm so brainwashed at this point.
That's fine.
But like they showed him going off to like learn how to like be an astronaut at the end of that movie, I think.
Yeah, it was very sort of, they wanted to still have their own version of events, but I do recall like a twist where things still sort of panned out as it would have done.
Yeah. And I will say it doesn't. For anybody that hasn't seen Kizuna Last Evolution, I don't want to spoil the way that movie ends in case you don't know. I will say though, the silence of it hurts like hell. It's well done. And then there was Try.
Oh, Try. I don't understand Try. I do understand Try. Try was an interesting one, and it had some fantastic things, and it's just like, every now and then, it just completely drop its spaghetti. And it's like, what were you trying to do, guys? Where were you trying to go? I have so many gripes with Try that literally I have a little button on my stream that my moderator will press and say, stop. Because I will go on a tirade about what Try tried to do, and just, I don't understand why they did it.
Yeah, I would love to do a series talking about like the anime content. I can't though, because Toei will come and feed me my fingernails. Oddly
enough, Try also caused my first legal litigation, I guess, from Toei, but it was entirely deserved and entirely on me, so I don't fault them for it. It's the first time I had that crossing.
I remember you talking about that on stream, yeah. Did I tell you that when I was editing the World 3 video, I kept running into moments where I was hearing like talking, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I listened closer, and I didn't realize that when I was like recording gameplay of that game on OBS, I was also capturing the rest of my windows, including Twitch, which I was using to watch you play Skies of Arcadia.
Oh, I appreciate the look there, mate. But no, yeah, I've done very similar. It's very easy to do. You don't realize. You think, I'm recording this, you'll do this without me telling you to, and it just doesn't. It grabs everything.
Yeah. Thankfully, I didn't really need a lot of in-game audio for that video, so, you know. Yeah, Try... I heard the classic joke of, you know, more like Digimon Adventure Try Hard, which, yeah.
It just seemed to ignore a lot of the original source material. So around the time that Try was being released, I took part in a Q&A with Jeff Nimoy, voice actor of Izzy, and also Tentamon, and Kawatarimon in that franchise. And he was there to talk about being Wolfwood in some new Trigon thing, but the Digimon fans heard about it, and we completely stole the entire thing. And we asked him like how it was that things happened, and he didn't have a lot of nice things to say. And my favorite pieces that I have the recording for, I'll have to pass over to you at some point, was when the voice director for the English dub team of Try took him to the side and said, "Are you sure Tentamon sounds like that?" And it's like, by this point, he's voiced the character for 15 years. I'm fairly certain he knows what to do.
Yeah.
And also how he had to fight tooth and nail to get Joshua Seth the role for Ty in Try.
You're kidding.
I just don't know. No, yeah. I think he mentioned having to pay for his flight to get him to be allowed to like try out for the voice acting for the English Ty for Try.
Literally one of the most important characters to get back.
Literally, I'd say I just don't think the production crew just had it behind them to understand. For me, the biggest gripe for me for Try was a very, very early gripe with Leomon, and how all the Chosen Children's Digimon understood the real world, because they'd spent 2 seasons interacting with the real world throughout Adventure in 02, and they understood that they are feared. They understood that they are monsters in their eyes, and they all had this. They all got this down perfectly. They knew how to act as plushes and everything. But then, when they were being cared for by Leomon, they all pestered Leomon like toddlers to go outside. Even Gatomon, who was like by champion level, she was mature, she understood, pestered Leomon to let them go outside and play and get snacks. It's like, these are not the same rookies. This is a different iteration entirely. This is not the same world. They cannot just figure everything.
It felt like they got, like, I don't know if flanderized is the right way to put it. But they were really simplified in their mentality. I personally I feel like I enjoyed the first half of Try, and then they got to the digital world, and then Try kept going, and I progressively enjoyed it less and less. The weird evil Jedi clone being creepy with all the teenage girls, I especially was just like, can we just not do this?
that twist, I thought, when we had the Digimon Emperor first, and I was like, oh shit, it's something. We saw what happened to the 02 kids, or what's supposed to happen to the 02 kids, and then we saw Emperor, and then we saw Jedi. I was like, oh, this is really, really good, and it just didn't. I mean, for me, if it stopped at the reboot, that'd have been perfect. That was like the iteration. That the whole section was peak for me. After that, it was just like, oh, we're still here, are we?
Yeah, and I'll never forgive like the last movie. We accidentally formed Ordinamon, which is probably one of the most terrifying Lovecraftian creatures the Digimon franchise has ever thought up. I love that monster to death. And then go ahead.
I was gonna say, I loved Ordinamon. I loved the Orphanimon Fallen mode. I finally off how you want to pronounce that one. I thought the devil version of that was fantastic, although how it sort of dragged Gatomon to things, I'm not quite sure how they wanted to run that, but Ordinamon was, I wasn't quite sure if I was supposed to be seeing everything I was seeing on screen, and there were lots of weird angles. I'm like, someone on the writing team has some issues they need to talk out with someone that's not on screen.
Yeah, it's a terrifying creature, but then they spend an entire hour of a movie just sort of like sitting around talking while this thing is just sort of out there, not doing a lot. And they're like, oh, this is bad. We should really do something about this. And that goes on for like an hour. And I was like screaming at my TV. I was like, could somebody do something?
It's like they literally have some of the strongest Digimon in the world on their side, and then they go through, I can't remember if that's before or after they go through the everyone gets their mega process, and it's just so played out and blasé. Nothing feels special, because everything's like, oh no, we need to fight this big guy, and oh no, Zudamon's doing really badly, I wonder what's going to happen next.
I liked that one fight, and I felt like that was one of the few places where like the new mega forms were kind of earned. Where it's just like, oh, like, hey, you know, they're in a dire situation. We're fighting against who we think is Ken. And then, hey, suddenly it's almost like someone was just like, hey, we're Greymon and Metal Garurumon were the only megas we saw in the original series. Can we do something about that? And then, like, finally we got to see, like, the rest of them. But there was definitely a point where it's just like, oh, we got to go through the motions because we got to do all of the partners get up to that level. And then
a level play field.
How did you feel about the Hercules Kabuterimon sacrifice scene with like the virus and everything?
So the whole process with the reboot. So I actually had the reboot complete picture as my Facebook cover photo for a long time, because I thought that individual piece was one of the most moving, well-written, well-played sections of the entire thing, where he just grabs everyone and drags everyone essentially to have their entire beings reset. And I was like, this is fantastic. This is deep. This is going to change everything. And then it doesn't. And then they go in and they're reset for a second, and then within a few, I think within the movie, if not the next movie, everything's back to normal.
Yeah, because like it hits you because you're like, the entire premise of Try is hey, fans that grew up watching Digimon Adventure. We saw the kids split separate ways with all of their partner Digimon that they spent all of this time, getting acquainted with and growing these deep bonds with, and go back to their lives in the real world. Fast forward a couple of years, they've kind of split apart to a certain degree, because life has just sort of moved on. They're growing up. They're going out and doing things, and then here's this big existential threat where we gotta, we're seeing like the Digimon warp into the real world again, and that's starting to cause problems. I was kind of into it at first because I was just like my favorite part of the original Adventure anime was when you started seeing like the Digimon coming into the real world and like dealing with the consequences of that. I thought that whole like Myotismon arc was a lot of fun because of it. And it's like, oh, we finally have like all of the Digidestined are getting back together with their friends, and they're seeing their Digimon again. We have some laughs and stuff. Also, there's a virus that's starting to spread across them, and they're starting to get more violent, and they're starting to do things and even attack like their human partners that they wouldn't do before. And it's only a matter of time before this virus spreads and turns all of them evil. And then to have this moment where it's like, we think that we can reverse this and maintain that they all get to keep their memories, they all get to like just be the same Digimon that they were before, and then everything just hits the fan, and one by one all the partner Digimon start getting infected and start like fighting off the remaining few. I felt the desperation in that moment, and when you've got Hercules Kabuterimon is like the last one, and he's just dragging these guys into the portal, and he's doing this out of love for not only the human characters, but for his friends that are like actively attacking him. This man being like the last line of defense. It was good.
It was fantastic having essentially one of the strongest members. I think Kabuterimon stands in terms of like the strength, but he was fighting War Greymon, he was fighting Metal Groomon, Digimon who far outclassed him, and he had a fresh evolution, and he managed to wrestle them all, bring them all back into where they were, and rather than like say, oh no, we're all better now, guys, they just continued the moment and dragged everyone in, and it does the pan around all the chosen children, and it was powerful. I really did enjoy that bit.
Yeah. And then it just kind of like spun its wheels for a while, where they're just like, oh, we go back to the real world, and the Digidestined all start meeting their Digimon again, and it's kind of a slow burn. They had like the one idea where like Sora and Biyomon don't get along at first, but
I thought that was really good. That was really interesting, because obviously Sora has all her memories, but Biyomon is fresh. She's like, oh, what's this weird looking creature? I don't want anything to do with that. I thought that was really interesting, and that was like a really cool thing to run with, and then again didn't.
They didn't do a lot with it, and it was the only partner where I felt like they tried to do anything interesting with. I don't know. And then I don't remember a whole lot more from Try. The entire second half of Try just kind of happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of memories of like the first part where for some reason Alphamon is just there, and for some reason things happen. For some reason the kids care about this, and the concept of collateral damage I thought was hilarious, because like we went from the Digimon rampaging throughout the world. I mean, maybe it's because the kids were younger, they didn't really understand, and like so when Togemon takes out a military helicopter, and all the chosen children are taken away by essentially the Digimon's FBI. I thought that was so surreally realistic. I thought, am I still watching my cartoon where these kids have pet dinosaurs, or I don't know what's going on? Like, are you trying to take this down the route of super seriousness with the doctor kid or guy and the police lady who had a lot of issues?
Oh my god, the police lady was like,
I forget her name entirely.
Yeah, she had like some of the most edgy material in that entire like miniseries. She just dies by the end, doesn't she?
Yeah, because she had some like unrequited issues with her lost Digimon. Tapemon, I think was her Digimon.
It was Tapemon, yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember like this lord, like for a while she was like, "Oh, I'll get you, you pesky kids," and then it just jumps into, "Oh, people are dying." It's like, "Oh, okay." Hey Digimon, hey Digimon.
Yeah, and it was like kind of fast forwarding. I do apologize for anyone in the audience that isn't acquainted with like these films and like what goes on in them, because a lot of that's just going to be word salad. But I've been burning to just like actually talk with somebody about these movies and because I binged like the Try movies in like a day or two. And I felt very drained by the end of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I watched them when they were being released slowly, and even that was a crime in its own sense. The release of Try. So I think we hadn't had anything for a while. I think Try dropped sort of after Appmon, but before Cross Wars. I think I'm struggling with dates. But they released it as a theatre-only thing in like select areas or on the internet. You had to buy the physical tickets and go watch the physical thing, and like the rest of the world just had to suffer or put up with leaks here and downloads there and dodgy websites covered in Google ads. And it's like, what do you expect us to do? Because a long-running thing with our glorious friends at Bandai is we all have these things called money, and we want to throw them at the Digimon franchise, but Bandai just doesn't let us sometimes.
Yeah, and that was... I feel like the entire production process behind Try was confused, because wasn't that originally supposed to be much shorter?
It felt like it was. It sort of felt like they got partway through the process and like someone upstairs was like, "This is working, make more," and they were like, and just quickly wrote out more. Yeah.
And it feels like Kazuna Last Evolution was sort of like, I don't know, maybe not an apology, but more of just a like, hey, we want like an ending to the Digimon Adventure series that people liked. And so we got that one, and then I guess they were like, well, we got to do one for O2 now, and then that's when we got O2 The Beginning, which is a standalone story about disconnected characters that they really, 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 really want you to believe is relevant to the O2 cast.
Yeah, it was very strange, considering how much like we'd already explored with 02, and like to a point where the main cast went around the world solving problems and meeting the Digidestined, and then it just doesn't. Like there's no one else in the world. We know there are chosen children throughout the world. We know there's hundreds of them, and then obviously Try rocks up and it's everything's just on the adventure crew. There's no one else.
That was my thing. I did not like that about O2 The Beginning. I do not like them trying to recontextualize why there's so many Digidestined. I liked the movie for the most part, and I liked the stuff with the kid and I forget the name of that weird puffy Digimon.
Ukomon. What when I first heard of Beginning, sorry to interrupt on that one, but Ukomon is such I looked at him like, is this a bad guy? Is this a good guy? Is this a marketable plushie waiting to happen? Like, what are you guys doing with this? Is this what you're trying to push for the movie? Like, what is it?
I'm gonna be honest, the design bothers me a little bit just because I look at it and all I can think of is the You ever played Catherine?
Yes.
You know the butt monster that's like coming to get you? That's kind of what Ukomon reminds me of.
It just looks so unfinished. It honestly looked like one of those kids competitions where everyone sends in their idea of, oh, this is Jellyfishmon.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, it literally looks like someone's just drew a bunch of circles and glued them together, and I don't like it.
I'm so glad that we got revelations like Syndromon and Yolkmon after that to kind of remind us that we can still get good Digimon designs.
Oh, I love Syndromon so much. The whole Cinderella princess battle royale thing. I love it. It's fantastic.
That's so cool. But yeah, they tried to like basically tie in this whole thing of like, I don't know, this retroactive like explanation as to why there are people or so many kids out there that have Digimon partners, and it felt tacky. It was so unnecessary. The story about this kid and his weird wish-granting Digimon was fine all by itself. Maybe not something I would have paid to see in theaters just for that. I basically went because it's a Digimon thing and I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity. But I don't know. It just, and like the O2 casts have nothing to do.
Yeah, it's a very. I mean, I watched the movie. I watched the movie with hope in my hands that Shakumon or Shakomon would evolve into /Engimon, and Sylphimon would become Valkyriemon, and I just hoped something would come of it. I hope something would go. This is the cool thing you've been waiting for, guys.
Do you think they're gonna try to do an equivalent for Tamers?
I really, really want them to. I really, really do. But I think Tamers is essentially well locked away, hidden in the bottom of the depth of Bandai because of like previous things that happened with Konaka, the writer for Tamers, or the writer-director. I don't think Bandai want to push it because Konaka tried to write a sequel and it didn't go very well, and it became a huge issue in the Digimon community when he tried to do. I mean, depending on content, it gets very, very awkward as a conversation evolves. Lots of pandemic and fake news and things like that. Was
that the thing where he was just like, oh, we gotta use Digimon to talk about cancel culture?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my god, that's what that was? God.
That's what that was, and that's why I'm fairly certain that Bandai have just locked Tamers away now, and they're going to try and forget it happened.
Oh no.
Which is a shame because I love it, and Konaka, he wrote Lane, and he was a fantastic writer, but he just, I don't know what happened at the start of everything. He just got locked away in his room, and sat on blog posts for way too long, and decided to write the Tamers sequel, and they thought counterculture and fake news was the main bad guy, and they had to defeat. It was all very, very strange, all very weird. I remember watching the live production where they had the voice actors read out the things, and they all looked very uncomfortable. And I think when the broadcaster started running a banner across the screen saying the views expressed do not reflect those of like the broadcasting company.
Oh no!
I was like, oh no! And then so many Tamers things. So we were just about to get a bunch of Tamers dim cards, which were gacha cards from like little prize eggs from Japan, and then mysteriously they disappeared, and everything got really weird for a little bit. And even Konaka came out and said like, oh, sorry, that was a bit weird.
You said they were going to do dim cards, like for the Vital Bracelet?
Yes. So roughly at that time, there was a range of 4 dim cards: Guilmon, Renamon, Impmon, and Monodramon, which they did do later when Tamers got a secondary wave. But just before they were, and they did this production thing, and they had this huge little line of like Tamers themed merchandise, and all very, very quickly disappeared shortly after this broadcast. And they said it was cancelled because of like production things, manufacturing issues, and like the pandemic and everything. but I'm fairly certain, in my own opinion, my own thoughts, is the broadcast probably had something to do with it.
Yeah, it's possible. Man, that's a shame. I didn't. Maybe I wasn't paying enough attention at the time. I didn't. Because I heard about that whole thing. I didn't know it was connected to Tamers. I didn't even know Kanaka was part of that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Tamers was massively dark. Tamers was a fantastically written story. It crossed some really interesting boundaries. It pushed lots of things. When you go back and look at Tamers, and you look at Fox Kids, and you're like, how did you greenlight this?
Yeah.
And when you see like the body horror, the mental disfigurement, and the mental anguish and torture of like Jerry, and how her body's changed, a huge like spire of Cthulhu alien monsters is just created, and they're all like in the face of like these children who are all contorted. Like how is this on Fox Kids? How is this? What happened?
Yeah, it's like the further that you get into that series, you start to see more and more. You're like, oh, right, this was the lame guy. Which I mean is nothing but a compliment, but like...
Yeah, no, he's a fantastic writer. He's fantastic at what he does, and it was all brilliant. I love him for it because it's my favorite series. It still stands now as my favorite thing for that Digimon ever created. But yeah, it's an interesting one to look back on. I still think it's interesting that we will remember Tamers for as it was, not for as it has become.
Right, yeah. I feel like that's one of those series where that one's always going to hold a very, very special place in the hearts of a lot of fans, because that was like... I don't know, especially at the time, I think the kids that were growing up with Digimon needed the series that kind of took it in that more serious direction.
Literally me. So I was 10 when Digimon Adventure and Digimon World 1 and World 2 were released. So I would have been around 11, 12 when 02 dropped, and then so when Tamers dropped, I was in my teenage years, the angsty years. You've got hormones everywhere. You're going through your Linkin Park phase, and you see like Megijimon, Beelzemon, and this whole world of like things just contorting against these kids who are just trying to like save the world, and it landed with my generation, at least my age range, very, very well. I was thoroughly obsessed with everything Tamers related.
It was also such a good concept. I do think that it was probably wisdom to kind of detach itself from like the series that had come before it, and to kind of let it just be its own world and its own thing.
Which in itself caused so much confusion because they recast Kari's voice actress as the teacher of Takato's class in Tamers, and she had the same like facial structure, the same like brown hair. So like when we had Takato's class and we heard Kari's voice, we're like, oh, this is Digimon in a few years' time, because they had Digimon cards and they knew of what Digimon were in that world. So obviously we just connected. Oh, it must be like 10 or so years in the future, because Kari's become a teacher and everyone's cool. So we thought, oh, maybe. And then we saw the blonde guy at the Digimon secret police thing, and we're like, oh, that's got to be TK. That's clearly TK. Obviously he's gone down some dark path and something, and some of us believed that for way too long.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing about that. Because like people thinking that was just like adult Kari and stuff. Man, and then man, I could just talk about that forever. I apologize. I feel like I kind of went off in a completely different tangent.
It's all good though. Still I love this as well, because I don't get this sort of chat myself, because I can spend hours. It's how I run my streams essentially. Is I just treat it like a Digimon radio show. Even if I'm not playing, and we're playing Skies of Arcadia or Grandia, it's just we turn it to Digimon and we just talk for ages, because there's so much to talk about. There's so many theories. There's so many things you can do. There's so much creativity, and the sheer love of the brand, and the sheer passion we have. Because even if Bandai don't show the greatest of passion, their staff still do.
Yeah.
Like I've spoken to the Bandai Namco PR team, and like I met the guys at a convention thing near me, and the guy was like, oh, we love Digimon so much, but obviously there's corporate things and there's red tape and stuff that stop them doing certain things, and they just want to do things, but like obviously things stand in the way. But The fandom are passionate. You see, every day there's OCs, there's fake mon, there's custom creations, there's recolors, there's stories, there's all these wonderful things being created. And Digimon's just such a massive franchise. Even if it's not one of the breadwinners of the monster training world, it's still got a passionate fan base.
It almost feels like a lot of them are just coming out of the woodwork. When I was at MagFest last month, especially like down in the vendor hall, the amount of Digimon stuff that I found, it's so cool. I got me a really nice Greymon plush. I love him. I got, there was a separate vendor that was selling some of the little babies, so I got a little Bonamon and a Sunomon.
Fantastic.
They make me very happy. I got some like charms and keychains, stuff like that. Like, and of course I was wearing like my like clear orange Digivice on my bag the entire time. And the amount of people that stopped to be like, "Oh my God, it's a cool Digivice!" Like, I was also a little sad by how many of them didn't know that this was a device that came out last year. But, it was, yeah, it was. It was neat to just kind of see like just how alive like that side of the fandom is, and like just how hungry they are to just like see more done with this franchise.
It's literally like turning over a rock in your garden. You'll see like one little woodlouse, and you turn the rock over, and there's just loads all of a sudden. And that's the Digimon fan base. We're just all hiding under rocks. We're all there, all scurrying around, doing our own thing.
Few of them are getting louder. A lot of people making Digimon content. For anybody that's not fully familiar with Hazard's work, this actually what you're seeing here, if you're a visual watcher, is his like VTuber model essentially, but it is designed after the Digibeetle, which is like the tank that you run around in Digimon World 2.
I always told myself if I ever did the VTubing thing, I'd use a Digibeetle. I had no idea how it would be done or how it worked back then. And when I started streaming Digimon World 2 as my main thing, along with World 3. My computer could barely handle emulating World 3. World 2 was fine. So I stuck with it to the point where I think at one point I'd literally streamed Digimon World 2 at least twice a week for 2 years. And I'd played like ROM hacks, I played challenges, I played speed runs, and then I just reached out to one of those VTuber creators, and I said like I basically handed them the PNG or the JPEG of the Digibeetle and the intro move. I'm like, please make this, and they just did, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's actually turned out really well, and it's always been a lot of fun, like getting on your streams and just seeing this little Digibeetle hopping around. Does the Digibeetle, is that a Digimon in and of itself?
So no, it's treated a lot like Mechanorimon, where it itself is sentient, where it has the capability to like think and do things, but it still like requires a pilot and maintenance and stuff. So I think it's on the same sort of levels as like the Zero Arms creatures like Grani or Orochi, Susanomon's swords, where it's like it exists as a digital creature, but it's not itself a digital monster. It's not capable of like evolution, or it won't return to data when it's destroyed or something.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, because I remember running into there were a couple of comments on my review of 2003, because I remember like Lord Megadeth, which is still one of the funniest names they've ever had the nerve to give to a character. It is explaining that he's like a creature that was born of the digital world, but like a lot of people had to clarify for me that that does not in and of itself mean he's a Digimon. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but like, what is he? Like, if not a Digimon, what visually or thematically sets him apart? That's my question.
Yeah, there's things that exist in the digital world that each series has, like whether they be diginomes or like digifish and creatures that exist. Like there's still like insects and fish and to a degree some level of like fauna that exist in the digital world that are not Digimon. They're just considered parts of the world. They like operate. So if you consider the digital world to be a computer and all the programs are the Digimon, there are still processes that your computer will do, which is not strictly speaking a program, but still needs to be done, and they are like the digital vehicles of the world that just basically carry things around, do certain jobs, or help certain programs in certain ways without really being their own sentient creatures.
Okay. Yeah, no, that tracks for me. My memory's a little bit fuzzy on like, because like if Digimon Adventure was always like my main go-to kind of like comparison for most things, because they established that people were in the digital world in that, like Genai, or was he human? Right? Was he human?
I think he was. I don't think he was human per se. I think he was another like digital construct, but he was like one of the arbiters of the old way. Because obviously the Adventure crew weren't the first Digidestined. There were a wave before them. And I think Genai was either part of that group or he was like an advisor to that group when he was like a lot younger.
Wasn't there like a piece of Digimon material? I want to say it was in 02 that tried to address like one of the original Digidestined.
Yes, there was in 02. There was it Ken's older brother who like passed away in the digital world, and then it connects to Ryu, who's the guy from Tamers, who also existed in the Digimon Cathode Anode game from the WonderSwan. There's a really weird.
There we go.
Yeah, there's a really weird attempt at like a proper connection of a deep lore to Digimon, but this was so long ago. I'm not quite sure what happened to that team or that guy, whoever wrote that piece, connecting those worlds together so like unisonly, and then that just like obviously just fell apart at some point when I assume that production crew ceased and it moved on. But no, there was an attempt at that connection.
It is interesting though. I always kind of liked that concept of like, there was a previous crew of Digidestined, and I feel like leaving them a mystery makes them more interesting. We don't need to know.
Yeah, and then Tamers had its own approach on how the digital world was created and that sort of thing with what they called the Crack Squad or something, being the team of the adults, including like Henry's dad, who created the digital world and created the Digimon as a wage. I think it was just an experiment for them almost.
Yeah, I do like that about like when the Digimon franchise can kind of like go ahead and just do its own thing, just set itself apart and just be like, hey, we have like a new idea for like how these all fit into this world and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really cool when each series sort of has its own approach to how it deals with things and how like things were created.
I still think Ghost Game is probably one of my favorite like. Well, not my favorite anime series. I do still think Ghost Game ran too long.
Ghost Game was wonderful for me, but Ghost Game's another topic where if I talk too much about it on stream, I get warned about it. Because I loved Ghost Game. I loved the Vital Bracelet. I loved everything they were trying to do, but I got so consistently frustrated with everything they just didn't push through. Like we were warned, Ghost Game is going to be episodic. It's going to be Scooby-Doo but Digimon, so don't expect big things. And then like we kept getting really close to being amazingly big things, and then it just went and just disappeared.
The way that they kept. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say, yeah, like, because like I was getting into the episodic nature of it and everything, and I actually really liked the sort of, I think the term Monster of the Week is a little abused, but it's kind of what it was. But it was on a small scale that just like worked for like, what's this interesting thing that we can do with this one little Digimon, and like have them like be a little rascal in the real world for a bit and like solve a mystery around that. And then in the background, we kept getting all of this build up to Gulus Gamamon, and it's like, I want to know what the deal is with this thing. You gotta give me more info.
Ghost Game did some fantastic things, and it tackled like some really, really big aspects of what Digimon are, what they can do, and what they exist as. Two fantastic examples for me was there's a really offhand moment in the series where a Digimon, Tapemon, is emailed from one person's phone to another person's phone in the episode, and they're just like, oh, Tapemon's here. Oh, I sent him on my phone. That's incredible. He texts someone, a rookie Digimon. Like in 02, we had a moment where we could not use Imperial Dramon because Wormmon and Vmon were separated. They were across other parts of the world for some daft reason. But we have that exact same problem here, but it's like, oh no, he's just here now because we just text them over to you. It's like, how? Why? And then another episode, Agitarimon, who's like a plant warrior Digimon, and their episode of the week is they're convincing a human to turn other people into plant people to test a drug or a concoction or a chemical on them to help create a substance that can turn the human into a plant Digimon so they can exist with Agitarimon. But it doesn't happen. They can't do it. They're killing all these people. Actually killing people, by the way. It gets really strange. And then Agitarimon realizes, well, if I can't make you like me, I'll make me like you. And this poor champion level Digimon starts tearing off its armor, its like plant bits. But up until this point, we've always really considered Digimon as like a sheet of imagery over a polygonal shape. There's nothing inside there. There's no organs or anything. But we see Agitarimon tearing off bits of his body, until he's just stood there like this black husk, existing as this like fragmented data. And it's just like, oh, this is huge. This is a serious like turning point in Digimon lore and how they exist and what they do. And then it's just we finish the episode. He gets defeated by Thing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did those things," and it just goes into the wind and is never approached again.
Yeah, and it's like, and I wonder if maybe that's just there's a mandate in place there where there's only so far that you're really allowed to explore that, because Digimon is such a widespread series that covers so much stuff, and it's just like, if you make certain definitions for what they are, like the rest of the franchise kind of has to follow that, and I don't know, it gets weird in that. That's my thing, is like, because it's such a cool moment, but it's like, how hard are they allowed to commit to it?
Yeah, like are they allowed to basically write a commandment of what Digimon are or can be? Is it down to this one person who wrote this episode to say, oh, I'm going to write this one offhand thing that they may think is really cool, but actually they're now setting a golden rule for Digimon forever? Especially
when we've seen time and again that they are terrified of moving on from Digimon Adventure and just like letting the franchise develop and evolve.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, Ghost Game suffered with like I've never watched Star Trek religiously, but the same sort of thing where no matter what happens in the episode, everything's fine the next episode. Where we have several examples of like a zombie apocalypse led by Zasomon. We have the main character of Digimon Ghost Game, Hero, and his Gamamon, and his the Weizen Gamamon, with his railgun Triceratops shooting down a satellite from space to the Earth, explodes, and then the next episode, like, no one cares. Like, you've had a satellite shot out of space. Why does no one care about this?
There should be more gravity to this event.
it's like in Try, they shot down a helicopter by accident with a big cactus monster, and they all got arrested and taken away. And in this one, we've shot down a satellite and nothing. There's an episode where people get turned to stone. There's an episode where someone gets burned alive, and the next episode it's just like, oh cool, let's carry on with the Digimon magic.
Don't worry, that satellite was Galacticmon. It had to go.
Oh, it's crazy. But I mean, we knew Ghost Game was going to be episodic, but I will say it had some fantastic moments, some great fights. The Gulu's Gammon process, every time that fella appeared, it was incredible.
It stole the show every single time. Like, anytime Gulu's Gamamon was on screen, everything else just stopped mattering.
The poor guttural scream of like Gamamon's voice actor when he shifts into Gamamon, just him screaming what he's doing, and like he knows this is painful, this is horrible, like he's angry, and it's not like in like previous series where we've had the Dark Evolution, and it's just like there's no sort of like scream or energy to it until later on. But like Gamamon is like, he's in pain, he knows what's happening, he hates it.
Yeah, they really make you feel for Gamamon. It's why he's one of my favorite Digimon now. Like, he's such a good boy. Oh,
he's so well written, and it's such a great series. I mean, I don't think I'll ever get an English dub this far down the line now. But I mean, it was such a great series. It just didn't do enough for me.
Was it after Ghost Game came out that they did the remake of Adventure?
Oh, Adventure 2020.
Yeah. Wait, which one came first? I might be getting mixed up.
I'm fairly certain Ghost Game came after 2020,
Okay.
but like before the English dub of 2020. So it's not always sandwiching between the two releases, because I remember having the Vital Bracelet during the lockdown and using that as my like, this is my thing. I deliberately went outside. I wore two. I wore my first edition and my second edition, double wristed, because I wanted to complete it. And the Vital Bracelet itself was another example of Bandai dropping the spaghetti.
Yeah.
And I loved it. The app was fantastic and everything was going so well, and then it just didn't.
And it's such a shame too, because it felt so rejuvenating, because it was like, oh, here's this brand new Digimon series. We have a new VPET toy to go with it, like that's like integrated into that show. There's something special about that, you know?
It was so good because it was directly connected to it, and you had the dim cards. You could buy a dim card pack and have a brand new Digimon installed on your thing. You could have jog rest with them. They had like fitness based, like it was so perfect to land around that time when everyone was stuck inside, and you could go outside and do your one thing a day of exercise. You could take your Digimon with you. You could go and walk to try and get your Shroudmon. You could just go and do some quick exercise around the house to try and just get your champion points up or your trophies up. And it was so utterly perfect, and it's just such a great device. And we got to the BE and everything was still going well. We got the new B dim cards, and it was even customizable. They broke the firmware quite quickly, and people got into it and made custom versions. It was like fake cards, and it just disappeared.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna be honest with you. I never finished 2020. I don't think I got that far into it, to be honest.
No, 2020 was. It started off with the first few episodes basically covering our war game in their own little way, where instead of a Megamon, they fought Argomon, I think. And it was just very strange to rush a Megamon in the first few series. It's like they were trying to grab everyone's attention really quick. Like, look at this cool big Nightman, and they grabbed all the Digimon fans' attentions by saying, look, it's a Megamon. You remember this guy from the movie, right? And it had some really cool moments. I will say the pinnacle of that series to me was also like, it's very, very quickly turned to the worst part, was when they introduced Zed Millenniumon. And
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, Zed Millenniumon, the huge planet-ending creature, is just there, and you have Godramon, and it's just this huge, massive creature. So he's there. The music is fantastic. It's like it's operatic. There's this feeling of dread as this huge monster just screams, and like you see his screams just destroy, sway through the digital world, and Lotmon stood there. And he's just saying like, this is the end of the world. Like everyone's wrecked now. We can't do anything about this. And then like you have this genuine feel of dread, like you cannot beat this. And then the next episode, Tai defeats him with Wargreymon and the power of friendship.
You gotta be kidding me, dude. Yeah.
No, just Wargreymon gets power. He becomes Gundam size and throws a really big Terra Force and saves the day.
That's really disappointing. And that's was that even like the main like threat at the end, or was that just something they threw into the middle of the series?
No, it carried on, but I'll be honest, I dropped it. I was so utterly defeated by that episode that I went back and watched like bits and pieces later so I could like finish it and like talk about it and everything. But it was the worst. It was the
yeah, because that's like those were like world-ending threat kind of Digimon stuff. Like that's what I was so thrilled with the ending of like the main campaign of Worlds 3, where it's just like, oh, we're doing Sonic Adventure 2. I'm into this. Stuff like that's it's fun, but like you gotta make the conclusion satisfying.
Yeah. I don't know. It just, I mean, very, very quickly, some of the best episodes, like the whole episode with Macmon and, no, not Macmon, Rebellionmon and Cutemon. Cutemon, the little pink fella from Cross Wars, and Rebellionmon, who was this orcish war boss of an Ogremon evolution, where he's got like one wheel instead of his legs, and he's got a buzzsaw in his claw hand, and he's just so cool. And there's no tie, there's no one else. And then the episode's fantastic. It's like Ogremon, this monster, and Cutemon is these best friends, and they're trying to like do things together, and then the polarizing characteristics of what they look like. And then it's just, oh, then there's Ty. He just comes in at the end of the episode, gets his 5 minutes of saving the day, and that's it.
I don't know if I'm going to go back to rewatch that. If I ever find a way to review the anime series without getting like shot in the head by someone over at Toei, maybe I'll give it a shot. But like until then,
they're so aggressive with what they do sometimes. I remember watching some of the when Ghost Game was big, and like everyone, like some of my friends were doing like review by review episodes, and Toei came in and said like no, and then they attacked the big One Piece creator.
Totally Not Mark.
That's the one, yeah. And it's just like, this guy is doing your franchise a massive service, and then you go on YouTube and you can find full episodes of like Dragon Ball Z movies out there, and no one cares. It's like, why is this with this targeted assault on people trying to promote your brand to your fans who you clearly don't understand?
I've been wanting to try to see if I could get in touch with Billiam, just because like he's done a couple of reviews of like the Digimon anime series, and I'm like, how are you alive? I just want to know your secret. I want to know how you scraped through this.
I think like the Digino sort of mastered a way where he'd used like alternate screenshots and like artist interpretations of sections and very, very little footage. And I think there was another creator whose name escapes me who got shot down. His channel was like destroyed during his Ghost Game reviews, and he just basically gave up the whole thing. And he tried to reduce it to like using like 10-second clips, then some footage of him, 10-second clip, footage of him. But even then, Toei were like, no, we don't have this.
Yeah.
It's something to do with Japan doesn't have fair use laws for their content.
Right.
There is no like conceptual like review process. They don't have that thing over there. I don't know the exact details. I just know it's odd, from my perspective anyway. For them, it's fine. It's their day to day. But for me, it's like,
Yeah, it's, I don't know. It makes our job harder, but
I wonder how like Japanese creators, their streamers, their YouTubers, I wonder how they do this sort of thing, because you see lots of their content creators create this stuff. Like you see some of their big streamers play Digimon, and they'll do the series, they'll do watch alongs and everything. It's just like, whoa, what is going on? Don't know.
I couldn't say.
Oh well.
It is like, man, it's a big franchise. I'm glad that we're still seeing it get support. We're still seeing like, I'm sure they've got more plans for the anime. I think we heard about like a new like music video they're doing based on Adventure. I don't think that's going to be a full series or anything. More of like a celebratory.
I saw the thing for that. I saw like some clips, and obviously it was Adventure again. So I was like, oh, cool, it's more of this. And then I heard it was a music video. It's just like, what? Did I miss something?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with that. I want to know what the next step is for the anime. I'm very glad to see that the games are still getting supported and stuff like that. It's so good to finally see what that like prophesied Digimon story game actually is.
I mean, a little bit of me, the little devil inside, wanted to go around every single person I'd spoken to who said, oh, no, Digimon story is dead, it's not going to happen, and just go, see what we have. But yeah. We know the franchise is for the fans, and I've seen so many fan projects just so passionately powered by just the fandom. I've seen private servers for dead Digimon games. I've seen one friend of mine has, between him and his friend, this is fantastic by the way, he has programmed an entire ass system that you could run via OBS, and you could import custom memory cards for Digimon World 1, and he basically hosts a tournament. And I've hosted these tournaments before where like people will send in their custom made memory cards for Digimon World 1, and we'll have a huge play-by-play with all the information on screen of of stats, of attacks, of things that's happening, and he's just made this himself, just with all this code. And it's just like, it's incredible to watch such an amount of passion from someone on the game this old, and it's just great to still see that happening in the community.
That sounds so cool. It's also like really cool to see everybody like pushing to get those like Digimon World up on GOG. Like that fan push has been phenomenal to see.
Yeah, that's been incredible, and their response as well. Like, even if nothing comes of it, like I know there's lots of opinions on what's going to happen, how it's going to work, and what they can do, what they can't do. But that's mostly irrelevant. What I'm happy about is the rallying power of the Digimon fandom. Is so many people have come together to say, yes, we want exactly this thing to happen. Because even if GOG can't manage it or something, hopefully someone flags, oh my god, like, you know, someone at Bandai or someone may see an investor or a supporter or something who has sway or something will see it and say, oh, actually, you know, this could make some money.
Oh yeah, like I feel like even if we can't get like that ported over onto there, like that, you know, just the voices all coming out and just like showing support for this, that is worthwhile in and of itself. And it is always good to try to promote and to uplift like the fans, just showing what it is that they want and what it is that they love and appreciate.
Yeah, even harking back to the old Operation Decode, where there was a team of people who just promoted and tried to get Digimon redigitized, decoded to the West, and albeit we never got it, it was still a big enough project that Bandai saw it and Bandai noticed, and Bandai didn't. They didn't do. We got All-Star Rumble, and then we got Cyber Sleuth, so we got something. But it just wasn't exactly what it was. But, you know, the power of the voice is there. Like, I've spoken to PR people, I've spoken to people from other companies, other franchises, and that sort of thing, and they know that the best way to get what you want is to make lots of noise and to make the company realize this is good for us to do.
Yeah.
Sitting your hands and being pessimistic would never work.
I'm gonna have to start sprucing up my chops on networking and everything, because I have got to try to do something to get a review code for Time Stranger. But oh man, sadly I don't think we got a whole lot more time here here tonight. It goes by really fast, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah.
Well, where can we find you, Digital Hazard?
So I'm over on Twitch, twitch.com/TheDigitalHazard. You gotta have the in there, that'll be me. I'm on Twitter as Digital Hazard, and they're the big ones that matter. On Blue Sky is digitalhazard.bluesky. However that all works, I don't remember it just yet. But no, I'm basically everywhere Digital Hazard. If you see me, you see the Digibeetle, that's me. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'll definitely have links to your Twitch and to your socials in the description of this video when it goes up on YouTube. It is worth noting that this will be the first new video. I'm going to be porting over the old episodes of Ram on the Rocks onto its own YouTube channel, and this will go up there following suit after that, because I don't think my YouTube algorithm has been very happy with me uploading these podcasts. It's all I'm saying is I had somebody get on the comments for the Digimon World 3 review, and they were like, hey, I'm subscribed. I'm just now learning 3 weeks later that this video went up. Yeah, maybe a dedicated podcast channel is what I'm thinking. That's the real digital monster, the algorithms.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I know that this kind of went off into just it was going to be a Digimon World 2 discussion, and it just turned into a Digimon tangent, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah, anytime. I've had loads of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next mission.